child migrant crisis is real. It's a crisis that's not going away. You know, it's more than just a story of a dead boy washed up on a beach. It's about a daily battle of a generation fighting for a chance to breathe freedom. Do we believe that all children in this country should have more rights than migrant children? Or do we believe that everybody should have the same access to support and care services? I have the privilege of caring for separated, unaccompanied and asylum-seeking children from abroad. And as a foster parent to date, I've fostered nearly 80 children from all different backgrounds. The single biggest reason for discrimination is fear. That's usually stimulated by a lack of knowledge and then passed on from generation to generation to generation. I've had to confront my own internal biases that I didn't even realise existed, and I think many of us struggle without even realising it. Today, I want to give us a true insight into the journeys that these children have to endure to challenge our perceptions of their place in our society. So, you may not think that you're ethnically biased when you're looking at a cute 4-year-old. But what about when you're, say, on a bus or the tube late at night, you're sitting next to a 16-year-old with dark clothes, maybe a hoodie, foreign angry sounding music blaring out of his headphones? What kind of internal conversation are you having in your head then? That boy on a bus is named Amir. Let me tell you his story. Amir grew up in a village where one day rebel forces came and systematically slaughtered as many people as they could catch. They randomly cut off the arms of some of the small boys so that when they grew up, they wouldn't be able to work, care, or feed for themselves. Amir hid for 3 days under the remains of his family's dead bodies until he felt able to escape. And then he ran and ran and ran, the sound of gunshots, screaming, and dogs barking running his ears as his feet pounded every step. He was rescued by a man who fed him, told him he would be safe, yet threw him in a hole with 2 other boys and didn't feed him again. He was sold to traffickers who one day put him on a vehicle with around about 50 people crammed in, hanging off the sides, piled on the top, to travel across the blistering hot heat of the Sahara Desert. He had no water to drink and the sun bared down on him, and Amir thought he would die. Kidnappers came and they pulled them off the vehicle, they beat them up and they shot several of them just to show their strength. This happened 5 times before he finally arrived in a warehouse in Libya where he was sold again and again and again, moved from pen to pen and hardly fed for 5 months. They would randomly take him out, torture him and hold a phone to his head to record his screams, and then send that recording and plead for thousands of pounds to be sent for his safe travel across the sea. One day he was taken and he was put on a boat, and this vessel had about 100 people on it, and there was nowhere for them to sit. In fact, they were literally having to sit on each other. This vessel went to sea, and the sea was incredibly rough. Everyone was being sick, and there was nowhere to go to the toilet. Several people actually fell off this vessel, and there was no food and drink, yet the boat carried on going. When they finally reached the shoreline, they were picked up by the Coast Guard and the police, but Amir and some of the others managed to slip away, and again he ran and ran, this time jumping onto the back of trains and walking for weeks across Europe. He suffered abuse, beating, starvation, pepper spray sprayed into his eyes, and he kept saying all the time, "I am a child," yet nobody helped. One day, traffickers got him onto a lorry, and this journey would change his life forever. He had tried so many times and failed. One time, he'd been taken by the traffickers and they were all beaten and they were lined up, crouched down along the roadside, waiting for a lorry to arrive in the dead of the night. As the lorry pulled in, there was gunshot all around. It was the police. Amir was petrified and he ran into a local forest, dogs chasing him, and he fell over. He managed to cover himself with branches and leaves, and then in the morning, he got up and walked back to the camp to find that several others had been arrested. This time was different though. Nestled between barrels of something that smelt a bit like chemicals, he and several others made it into the UK. 2 years after he had originally began his journey. He never intended to come to the UK. All he wanted was to be safe. All he wanted was to be free. He was picked up at a service station by the police, and it was instantly obvious that he was a child, and he was placed into the emergency care of children's services. And there a new journey began. I've learnt that every unaccompanied child has a story. They are very unlikely to have made it to this country without being trafficked, abused, manipulated and controlled. They would have definitely suffered starvation and beatings. They would have had the fear and agony of not knowing who they could trust. Everybody has a story. It's not until you know their story do you fully understand who they are. Amir has a story. Does he deserve to be feared, judged, spat at in the street and shouted at, go back to your own country, stop taking our jobs, our flats, our benefits? Does he deserve to be followed around a shop by security guards that have socially profiled him? Or maybe told that he's rude because in his culture, please and thank you don't even exist as courtesies? Some of us in this room have had the difficulty and tragedy of having to see a parent die. But to see them murdered, how do you get over that kind of trauma? It starts with you and me. We really can make a difference. Do you know that every action, every negative word, every facial expression, every glance, every whispered word under our breath leaves a mark? It doesn't just leave a mark on our today, it leaves a scar on tomorrow. Who are you influencing today? Do we want our children to grow up with that fear, that judgment, that bias? Or do we want them to grow up embracing a displaced generation and embroidering them into our family, helping their difference and our difference to connect together and make a shared future? You and I look different. Our journeys and our lives and our stories couldn't be further worlds apart. But you know, we have so many shared similarities. We've both got boys. Gosh, that's a handful. We have dreams for their futures, that they're going to be full of life and passion and energy and love. And we want to see them rise way beyond our expectation. You're an amazing woman. I mean, this woman has been a software developer. I can't even get a handle on my Twitter and Instagram. You are amazing on so many levels. Don't cry, you make me cry. Give me a hug. Where's my friend Joe? Joe is a superstar. Every time you smile, Joe, my world just literally lights up. I arrived today and you just made me feel better from the moment I saw you. Joe is an amazing husband. You are an amazing father. Well, your wife says you're just amazing in every single way, Joe. And you are an inspiration to me. You know, I believe that together we can help the next generation stand on our shoulders and achieve more and not have to even have these conversations. But Joe, give me a hug, mate. My encounter with these guys hasn't just affected them, it has changed me. Who are you influencing today? Who are you connecting with in your doorstep world? Remember, next time you're sitting on a bus next to Amir, he has a story. Look again and be the difference. Come on, guys. What are you passing on to the next generation? Thank you.